Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. Before we get started, please share the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast. We love when you spread the show. It's how we grow. Make sure you're subscribed to catch every episode, and give us a good rating and review if you feel inclined to do so. It really helps support the show, and it's free, so go ahead and do it. Today, show favorite, Dr. Coffee, back on the line. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, it's another day above ground, living the dream.
Love it, man. Absolutely love it. I got my Purity decaf going. I've been upping my decaf intake and starting my decaf a little bit earlier in the day and drinking it into the night. So I'm liking that, Dr. Coffee.
Wow. Well, hold on. Will you bring me a razor blade so I can cut my neck? He's drinking decaf.
What's wrong with decaf? I start caffeinated. What's wrong with decaf?
Nothing's wrong with decaf. Nothing's wrong with decaf. In fact, there are people that are very sensitive to caffeine, and those people should stay away from caffeine,
right?
Or they should take more L-theanine with their coffee, or they should work on their adrenal glands, because I believe that caffeine sensitivity is related to adrenal fatigue or liver detox. So anybody that's having those problems with caffeine sensitivity, send me an email. Let's talk it through.
Oh, you're awesome. But yeah, I've just had these decaf K-Cups, and I'm enjoying it. And then a thought popped in my head. Today is a coffee news episode, so we're going to get into that in a second. But I do want to address this, because I was thinking if I start with a couple cups of regular and then move into decaf, and we talk about how there are these health properties that are lost when the caffeine doesn't synergize, I wonder how much caffeine is required for that synergy, Dr. Coffee. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean. And if I'm understanding you correctly, we're looking at about 100 milligrams of caffeine a day to do what it needs to do.
Oh, really? Okay. So we know that that's a threshold that is a beneficial threshold.
Yes.
Interesting. 100 milligrams a day. So if you look at an average cup of coffee, I'm looking on Google right now, 95 milligrams. So Dr. Coffee, can you drink a cup and a half of regular and then follow up with all the antioxidants of decaf and maybe get those? I mean, not that I'm suggesting that people switch to this, but maybe get the same benefits from the synergizing of the caffeine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's really what you can do. You can have your cup of caffeine. Coffee is a caffeine delivery system.
Right.
So you can have your cup of caffeine in the morning, which will give you about 95 to 100 milligrams of caffeine. That'll get you kicking for the day. If you get past 300 milligrams of caffeine, then it's acting too much as a stimulant and too much as a diuretic, and it can increase blood pressure and heart rate.
Right.
If you're sensitive to caffeine, you can use Swiss water decaf, and the only process of decaffeination you should use is Swiss water, or else you're using chemicals. Chemicals are just not good.
Right. So that's very important too. But as far, that's an interesting thought. If you hit the threshold of your caffeine to kind of synergize and get those, I think a lot of the benefits that come from that synergy, if I remember correctly, have to do with the brain, the Alzheimer's prevention and the stuff like that, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's incredible.
And it's also the type of brew. Remember that in a latte, there's only about 63 to 100 milligrams of caffeine. In an espresso, it's only about 50 milligrams of caffeine.
Okay. So it does really matter. Yeah.
In brewed decaf, it's 2 to 5 milligrams. Remember, decaf doesn't mean there's no caffeine.
2 to 5 milligrams. Interesting. And also the cup size, right? You get a little diner cup, a little rinky-dink diner cup. My wife pours herself a mug. It's like a goblet.
Yeah. For brewed coffee, around 95 to 165 milligrams of coffee is an 8-ounce container.
Right, 8 fluid ounces.
Same thing that I quoted for the decaf is
Perfect.
8 ounces.
Incredible, man. All right. That was way more satisfying of an answer than I thought I was going to get. Interesting. So I'm on the right track. I'm going to stick with my pattern.
Yeah. So let me say one more thing about caffeine delivery. The type of caffeine that's in tea is different than the type of caffeine that's in coffee.
You mentioned this before. Caffeines are chemically comprised differently. I had no idea before you brought that up on the show once.
Yeah, so that's why I also recommend drinking tea. There's a difference in the types of caffeine that are in tea and coffee. There's also a difference in the types of stimulants in tea and coffee, so that there is something called adenosine, which is a chemical that's found in the brain. And there's something in tea that will block it so you don't get sleepy all the time. So it works more as a stimulant.
Interesting.
So there are theophylline and theobromine, which are both chemicals related to caffeine, but they're in the family of xanthines. So they're different. So you get a different effect from drinking tea.
And different antioxidants too. So you're Dr. Coffee and you talk about the health benefits of coffee, but you say mix it up too, right? Throw in the tea, and we're going to talk about some other stuff later in this episode too, but you're not against mixing up your antioxidant delivery systems and caffeine delivery systems.
Absolutely not.
Love it.
I love, I feel really good when I drink green tea, for example.
Totally.
It helps me feel more relaxed and focused, and I don't get excessively wired from it.
Yeah, and the cultures that drink that tea usually have good health too. Sorry.
Yep.
Interesting stuff, man. Very interesting stuff. Listen, we got to dive into the coffee news. Can we move on here?
Yeah.
I love it. First, okay, we have 4 amazing articles. The first article, this is big. This is a big news, and this is this particular article is from Grit Daily, but this is a big story. You're going to see it all over the place in the coffee world. Starbucks is launching a new bean to cup tracker. So they're going to start basically tracing origins of all of their beans, and you're going to be able to, scan a QR code on your cup or whatever it is and find out everything about that bean. Now, this is incredible. I love this, obviously, Dr. Coffee, because you know what's going on here at the Coffee Health and Science Podcast. I'm surprised that Starbucks did this because they're a massive company. Like, when you track your bean, it's going to be a non-organic bean from a different place than the last cup you tracked, right? I mean, it's still really cool, and God bless Starbucks for doing it. But I'm a little surprised that they did it, right?
Yeah, so, Starbucks is taking an approach of saying they are an ecological company, and that the very poor people, like in Nicaragua, who don't make a living from their coffee and are on the edge of poverty all the time, that by announcing Starbucks is doing this for the coffee world is showing how ecologically sane Starbucks is. I think it's a great PR move.
Right. Good point. That's a really good point. I'm happy about the residual effects it's going to have, because if they go and do this, I think it's just going to inspire competition to do it and make the tracing systems easier. And then everyone's going to be able to see exactly where their coffee came from. Because that's what's missing from the free market, right? If the free market is supposed to work, people have to be educated with the truth, right?
Absolutely. In blockchain technology, it's nice to be able to look at the sourcing and to look at how people are benefited from us buying coffee from them. Now, you went down to
Colombia.
Amazon, right?
I went to Colombia, yeah, and it was exactly what you just put it really, really well, which is they were benefiting from all of the appreciation that Purity did, or the appreciation of the customer to pay that extra price to get this extremely high quality coffee. The guy down there, Oscar, you would have loved this, Dr. Coffee. He invented with some German engineer. There's only like 2 or 3 of these machines in the world. He took the money that he was making from his farm, selling organic, high quality regenerative beans, and he invented this optical sorting machine. And like I said, there's only a couple in the world, and it optically analyzes the beans as they pass on a belt, and then shoots a puff of air to shoot out the bad beans, and you're left with only it's just crazy stuff going on, man. And it really does get back to the farmer. And we have some footage of that too. You can find puritycoffeepodcast.com/clip. There's a couple really good links. But anyways, you're absolutely right, Dr. Coffee.
Right. So Starbucks is kicking this off with 380,000 farms.
Jeez.
Some in Rwanda. some in Costa Rica, and some in Colombia.
Jeez, that is big business. 380,000 farms.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Like I said, great PR move
Right.
for Starbucks, but also very ecological for the world. We've got to keep protecting our coffee bean farmers.
Sure thing, man. And the more transparency, that's the key, right? That transparency. And if we can use technology to kind of aid and accelerate that transparency, I love it, man. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I want to be able to scan a bag and see the farm on my phone. That would be very, very cool. That would be very cool. And I think we're very close.
It's coming to a phone near you.
Yeah, totally. That's really neat. So shout out to Starbucks. Can't believe I just said that. Okay. Let's see, man. This next one's big. It's been on my radar for a while. I got in an argument recently. I didn't even want to get in an argument with someone about coffee substitutes, about mushroom coffee blends. Well, I know there's a lot of different coffee substitutes, but I think most of them are comprised of a kind of mushroom blend. And I had to get your opinion on this because I'm a huge fan of the health properties of eating fungi. I love the power of mushrooms. I don't drink this stuff. I love coffee too much, but I had to get your take on it. What do you think about? I mean, we don't need to bring in any brands, but you know the ones I'm talking about. It's these coffee substitutes that are a blend of usually herbs and mushrooms.
Absolutely. So I was stalked by a multi-level marketing company that wanted me to be Dr. Mushroom instead of Dr. Coffee.
Oh my God, no.
And, you know, drinking water is important, especially good quality water.
Right.
And what you put in your water matters. So the mushroom blends are supposedly healthy, but they don't replace coffee for me.
Right.
They never will.
Right.
And, you know, I've written that book on the health benefits of coffee, which if any of your readers ever want to read, let me know. But in it, I bring out all the different health benefits for coffee. And they haven't been able to do that for mushrooms. So I'm not giving up my healthy benefits coffee for mushrooms that don't taste anywhere near as good as a great cup of coffee. Yeah,
I mean, that's all I hear as well. But I would love to see more studies. What's interesting to me is it's, you know, coffee is there's so many studies, you know, hundreds of thousands of people have been a part of these meta studies about coffee. And we don't have that with these mushrooms, although there are, you know, lots of other clinical trials to show that certain mushrooms, chaga mushroom tea, like have these certain health benefits. We know they're good for us. We don't really know how good, right?
Yeah. You know, for a while I was trying to add chicory to coffee, but I could not get past the taste. I did not like the taste of chicory. I know people down in New Orleans are probably screaming at me now because Café du Monde is a coffee and chicory blend.
Oh, interesting.
But I don't like it. So there's a company out there called Config, which is roasting organic figs to emulate the flavor of coffee. Figs are interesting because there's a sugar which is non-caloric in figs called allulose. And allulose has a lot of health benefits. And so I would be interested in trying Config's blend of fig coffee.
Fig blend. That sounds delicious, man. I am a big fan of figs personally.
Yeah.
Underrated fruit, the fig. So you, again, this I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, but this kind of falls in the same or maybe a little lesser category as tea. It's not as good as coffee, in your opinion, when it comes to the health benefits, but there's nothing wrong with adding mushrooms to your diet however you can, you know, or occasional mushroom tea for the other benefits of health.
Absolutely.
Okay. I like it. We're going to keep on the line here. This is kind of in the same vein, this next story. And it's just, again, more of a take that I want to get of yours, because there was a huge $40 million IPO recently for a plant-based coffee creamer. It's smashing into the market. And you got to understand why, right? With all these trends, you take a look at the Impossible Burger at your local fast food place. You know what I mean? What are your takes on the plant-based creamer, and then also this kind of process industrialization of plant-based food in general?
Yeah, so let's talk about milk first. There are people that say no one should drink milk because cows never drink milk, only cats do. It's baby food.
Right.
And there's a whole argument on that. There are also people that are lactose intolerant,
Mm-hmm.
so they can't take the lactose, the sugar from milk,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to use either lactate or stay away from milk. So there are non-dairy creamers. There's also people that keep kosher and don't have milk with meat. So at the end of a meal where they want a cup of coffee, they'd have to use a non-dairy creamer. Most of them are chemical junk,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a company called Laird. I think it's Laird.
Correct.
Laird Superfood is the company, and they've come out with supposedly healthy non-dairy creamers.
Right.
When that was announced, I went out and bought some because I got to try anything to do with coffee, and I could not get it to mix.
Oh, interesting.
It clumped to the top no matter how much I stirred it. It came back up to the top in little clumps, and I couldn't get past drinking that bubble tea experience.
Interesting. Maybe they're still working out the kinks. Maybe the $40 million will help. Sorry, it's a cynical joke. I had to say it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I had to say it. That was a smart aleck remark.
But that then leads into a deeper story. The story is following foods like Beyond Meat.
Right.
So when we look at the use of soy in history, the Asians knew that soy should be fermented. It should be tofu. It should be miso. They didn't really eat soy.
That's true.
And I have been schooled that there is a difference between the fermented types of soy and regular soy. There are a whole host of people who soy changes the endocrine
system. I knew you were going to say that. And this is a touchy subject because soy was lauded as and is still frequently kind of consumed as a healthy product. But my understanding, talking to like real physicians, and like doctors such as yourself, is that soy's like really bad for your hormones, for your endocrine system. Exactly what you said.
Exactly. So, we see a lot of people that come in with thyroid issues, and we take them off soy, and that seems to help them quite a bit.
Jeez,
so I'm just not sure whether soy is a product that's good for everybody. And if it's not, then the companies that are making burgers with soy substitutes, those are not good products for people. And I also still can't get over the fact that I'm going to drive into one of the fast food chains and order a burger with French fries and a milkshake, and it's going to be a fake burger,
Yeah, right. And it's going to be, and it's healthy. Don't worry. It's healthy. It's like, if you're going to go for it, I feel like you got to go for it.
Yeah. So stay away from soy because of the isoflavones, and don't let it mess with you. That's what we've been schooled, and that's kind of where I still stand.
Right. Yeah. Anything but eating a whole food. I really think that's more on point. Let's see. We got one more here. Coffee fruit. I wanted to talk about coffee fruit. Healthline.com had a really interesting article. Did you take a look at this? It's talking about, a lot of people don't know that the beans that we brew into the beverage that we love is actually the center or the pit of the coffee cherry, and that there's some delicious meat that I actually got to try for the first time when I was in Colombia that surrounds that bean. So what's your experience with coffee fruit meat, and what do you think?
So I've been a proponent of coffee berries, of the fruit of the coffee, for a long, long time. I had invested some time and money into, I think it was BAI, that makes a juice out of coffee fruit. There's a multi-level marketing company that does a juice out of the coffee fruit. And I really wish somebody would make it much more available for people at a reasonable price. It should be a reasonable price because the fruit is discarded. They smash the fruit, they take out the stone, the pit, and they use that for coffee, and they discard the fruit.
Yeah, traditional farming, they just toss it.
Yeah. So I would really like if somebody said, you know what, we're going to just use all that fruit and make things, especially eating things, because it's healthy. It's got antioxidants. It's got a good flavor.
And it's delicious.
Maybe a little, yeah.
It's weird that they haven't just kind of canned it and sold it like cherries.
Yeah, I really don't know what. One of these days I've got to contact somebody that works in that industry and say, why isn't this used more?
I'll tell you this, Dr. Steve, you're going to love this. I said traditional farming because if you take a look at, we were talking about the farms down in Colombia, these regenerative agriculture farms, they get their inputs, their fertilizers, not from the synthetic bottled fertilizers, pouring in the synthetic fertilizer, but from natural sources. One of the best ways to do that is compost tea, which comes from compost that they make on their farm. And the number one thing that they're throwing into their compost pile at La Finca Primavera in Colombia, coffee cherry meat, coffee cherry skins. They're composting that and then bubbling the compost, turning it into tea and feeding it to the plants. And it's like a microbial nutrient superfood for these plants. It's nuts, man. You would love it. You would absolutely love it.
That's great.
But yeah, I mean,
more power to them.
Yeah, that's one thing that this article doesn't mention. They talk about the health benefits, that there's still caffeine in these, that they're delicious, that they might promote fat loss. But one thing they don't say is it can actually be fermented into fertilizer for the coffee farm itself if they're in a regenerative agriculture setup. Pretty crazy.
Very cool. Maybe next time we talk, I'll have more information on coffee fruit. I'll do some research on whether any companies are really trying to move this forward.
I want like a coffee fruit pie. That sounds delicious.
And it's good for your brain.
Dang right. Yeah, absolutely. Did we talk coffee grow kits? Right before we wrap it up, I don't think we discussed this. We're sending out coffee grow kits. We got a huge list of applicants. Thank you to everyone that messaged me on Instagram. There was something wrong with our email. If you emailed us, we have your name. We've added you to the list, and we will contact you. We'll probably do these in little waves. But yeah, thank you, Dr. Coffee, for putting all this together. I appreciate you, man.
My pleasure.
And then everyone who signed up, everyone who signed up, stay tuned. And stay tuned to this podcast for more Dr. Coffee, for more coffee health and science, coffee history, everything. This is Dr. Coffee and Jordan River signing off saying, have an extraordinary day, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Coffee Health and Science Podcast.